Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the OGKROE News end of season edition. Today's OGKROE News will consist of a recap of the past races, and we will be heading into the future, looking at the calendar for season 4. Sit back, relax, and don't jumpstart. Let's start with round 1, Miami, together with the first sprint of the season as well, with some immediate action out on track, especially for tier 2. We had 2 safety cars in the sprint only, and 8 DNFs, and 3 safety cars for the race. Yeah, it proved to be a difficult track for everybody, especially in the wet, and DNF came out as the best so far, getting 33 points. For tier 1, they had a bit more luck. The sprint race started out dry, only 1 DNF, no safety cars. Defending champion Phil took 8 points. He took the win ahead of Maxette and 610. For the race, however, intermediate tires were bolted on. But after 7 laps, the Mercedes duo of Rafa and Kyoko, they went to the dry tires. It was strange to see that, because everyone was still staying out on the intermediates. But it proved to be the best call he ever made. 4 laps later, Rafa found himself in P2. Almost leading the race after he was all the way to the back of the grid after the safety car, and all thanks to everyone in front of him pitting after the safety car came back into the pit lane and they wanted to get to the dry tires. At the end of the race, Rafa ended up in P3 and the Big Chef took the win. He looked like the fastest driver so far in the league, so there were high hopes for the Red Bull driver. Round 2 took us to the other side of the ocean. We went to Suzuka in Japan. I joined a few practice races, and overtaking proved a bit difficult, at least during the practice session. If you watch the Japan highlights, you know overtaking wasn't that difficult for Gap in tier 2. It was in P11 on fresh soft tires after George went off and brought out a safety car. 5 laps was all Gap needed to go from P11 and finishing the race all the way in P4. 4th place for Gap. Something to note, both the Williams drivers were heading for a 1-2. First 1-2 of the season for Williams, but they bottled it, and they gave Tycho his first win in the league, which saw him jump to 3rd in the standings, and only 1 point behind Gap, 9 points behind championship leader at the time, DNF. Tier 1 was just a whole different story. The top 5 finished within 7 seconds of each other. Rafa showing his true form. He took pole position ahead of Montero with 2 tenths, and he dropped down to P11 only after a few laps. And for a while it looked like the podium was quite far away for the Portuguese. Until lap 19. Safety car, fresh soft tires, and only 6 laps to go. But it didn't matter for Rafa. With some amazing overtakes on track, he took the win and closing the gap to only 2 points. The Big Chef. And round 3 brought us to Monza and brought us an exciting start. Lap 1, turn 1 Monza, everyone survived somehow in tier 2, and it was Dino who took the lead starting from P5. It looked promising because Tycho falling down to P10 at the start. I think he had a wrong tire choice. I don't know, you will have to look at the highlights for that. Bit of a sellout. But he was still ahead of his closest rival, DNF, who did not set a time in qualifying. At the end, lap 26. Tycho pulled his way back to P2 behind Alfa Romeo. And with one last lap to take his 2nd win and deal a huge blow to DNF, who DNF'd, and he did it. Tycho took the win in Monza, is now 14 points ahead of Gap, 16 points ahead of DNF. And tier 1, defending champion Phil was really struggling out there on track. He lost the car, never got back to his usual pace, and eventually he retired. Rafa, voting as 3rd, out-qualifying Big Chef by less than half a tenth. He continued his winning streak, took P1 in the standings as well from Big Chef, and there was already an immense gap between Rafa and Big Chef at the top and the rest of the field. Phil he was in third with 23 points. And Rafa was leading with 71. Round 4 was in Belgium. We just had the Belgium Grand Prix in the real life season. Tycho was not present at this race. And DNF did it. He took the sprint, he took the win in a sprint, 8 points, and 18 points in the race. Because there was a big upset, a big surprise. Who took the win? The name, some may know how to pronounce it, some may not, and some puke it out, and some just... no, I don't think anyone loved him in the league. His name was George, and I still don't know how to pronounce his last name. But he started 9th and took the win. Still don't even know how he did that. And to be fair, after that he mostly had some disappointing results. So I guess it was a fluke. But oh well, both DNF and Gap overtook Tycho again in the standings. And the gap between first and third, only 10 points. Tier 1, we saw the return of Melon, later known as the Fruit. And he demolished the competition. Winning the sprint, winning the race. I mean, only if he joined the previous races. Well, nevertheless, Rafa maximized his results, P2 in both races. And Dom got his first podium. First of many of the season. Halfway through the season, and we have landed in Austria. A well-known track for OGKROE. We've been racing here all 3 seasons. It's time to shine for the OG drivers. Take the experience and have it translate into the race. Most Formula 1 commentators would say it did happen. Logan took his first win of the season ahead of his teammate Tycho, making it an Alfa Romeo 1-2. Something the Williams drivers may learn from. And the Tier 1 played a similar story. Two-time champion Phil, he used all his experience, took home the win ahead of newcomer Thiago Costa. Once again, Dom taking the last podium position. And then it was time for another sprint. This time it was in Singapore, and we have another newcomer, but this time for Tier 2. His name was Yu, and he did not set the time in qualifying, trying his best for the first challenge, and he almost did it. He climbed his way back to P5 in the sprint race, and only to end up P2 in the race, behind, of course, Logan the GOAT. And Tier 1, not the best race for Rafa. Well, it looked like one of his better races, only to get disqualified by EA. 0-1, and Melon took the win. Again, in both race and the sprint, and he closed the gap from 57 all the way to only 30 points in the standings. 2 more races left, and we have a gap between Tycho and DNF consisting of only 5 points. Both drivers did everything they could to get maximum pace, and Tycho struck first in qualifying, taking pole position 8 tenths ahead of DNF, who would start side by side with Tycho in the front row. What about the race? Well, 8 tenths in qualifying, dominating pace in the race, 24 seconds ahead of DNF. Tycho took it. Tier 1, Rafa taking pole position, Melon 4th, Big Chef 6th. That was all looking good for Rafa to get closer and closer to the championship. After the debacle in Singapore, it was looking good. But it was Melon taking the victory, and Rafa finishing in P4, swapping places from the start. And now only 17 points separated them in the standings, Rafa and Melon. It all came down to the last race of the season, both tiers. Imola would be the playground for the drivers, and it is still fresh in our memories. Tier 2, DNF, you did your best with Tycho as much as possible, but he was just a bit faster throughout the season. Tycho taking the win, welcome to the Hall of Fame. And Tier 1, rest in peace Melon. Taken out during the race, and he could not put up a fight for the championship. So we welcome Rafa to the Hall of Fame. fame. It is all in the past. Points have been divided. Tickets have been resolved. Penalties like Salt Bay. Let's take a look at the future. At the calendar for Season 4. We will start in Portimao, a well-known track for Season 2, especially for Destroy and Dodgefall. They have seen all parts of the track on track and off. And it will start on September 5th. After that, we'll be heading to Monza again. Of course, many good memories from Season 3, but also from Season 1. If you still remember them, it was Romaik and OGKROE fighting for the win, and only a 10th separating them over start finish, with Romaik taking the win and Phil taking the championship in Season 1. And round 3 will be in Mexico. Mexico will also see our first sprint of the season, and then from Mexico we will fly to the home of OGKROE in the Netherlands, to Zandvoort, and I'm excited to see what the drivers will bring to Zandvoort, their new cars. Baku for round 5. Of course, we always need the street circuits on the calendar. Last time was Singapore, this time the wheel decided it would be Baku for round 5, and then we'll fly back to Europe, Spain, and a sprint race in Spain. Everyone knows the track. I mean, testing has always been there, so yeah, not much to say other than it will be a sprint race in Spain. Yeah, another first timer on the OGKROE calendar, of course. And the final 2 races will be in Britain, Silverstone. Brazil will be the playground for the last race of the season. That will be our calendar for Season 4. Hi, Michael Nazi here from the future, working on the video itself. And I just found out I don't have an outro, so I'll do it this way. Of course, the calendar is here. We all know the calendar for Season 4. Tonight will be Dom's Monday Madness. He organized it all, he called for everything. All I'm wanted to say is thanks everyone for watching the video, joining the races, joining during the season, after the season, before the season, and we'll see you at lights out.